Welcome to In the Hot Seat for our repeat viewers. Thank you for joining us again. If you're new to this show, every 2 weeks we put industry experts and or customers in the hot seat for a lively discussion, debate, maybe a little discourse as we try to humanize the digital experience. All aspects of the customer lifecycle are up for discussion, as well as technologies throughout the customer journey. And this time we're actually turning the lens inside the organization, and we're going to define the digital experience to include the employee experience. This is the first in a new series that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks that looks at, in this case, the AI skills gap, what Gen Z graduates don't know, but employers expect them to know. So I'm excited to jump into this one, Pete. It's an interesting topic.
It's really interesting, the amount of variation that's out there with regard to AI. I mean, forget how fast it's moving, but just the like, what is it? Is like the how you could possibly look at somebody, across universities or anything like it. It's a huge challenge, and it's not even necessarily like it just to me. Just technology diffusion is always like its own animal, and it just takes so much longer than you would think. And a lot of it isn't rational. And even when it is, there's all these organizational barriers that prevent you from going as fast as you want, or in, organizational unknowns, like they just don't even know how to have the conversation about, and how to weight it, throw a little AI term in there.
Yeah, no, well, and it's interesting because I was looking at this World Economic Forum article this morning, and some of the numbers, and I mean, it's no surprise that a lot of companies are using applicant tracking systems that have AI built in, and even moving into using some AI interviewers up front. But the numbers are kind of crazy, and I was looking at this thing. It talks about Goldman Sachs got 315,000 applications for an internship in 2024. And then apparently Google got over 3 million applications. McKinsey got 1 million. And they said that between 2014 and 2022, the Indian government had 220 million applications for central government jobs. So the problem has gotten just massive. And part of that is, of course, I can have my AI call your AI and drop my resume in and hopefully get through the gate to have the interview. But it's really hard. And I think, and you can share some from the sales contest that you guys attended a couple weeks ago too, because I know, that was all Gen Z folks too, thinking about how they get out into the job force, and that's been a big kind of discussion point around this. But particularly, I was interested in other uses like applicant tracking, sure, having it write your resume, sure, having it submit your resume. I mean, you can have agents manage that for you. But now, like I said, apparently AI interviewers are a thing, and you're starting to see the first level of screening actually go through an agent before you get to the human. And it was interesting because they shared in this article that over 50% of the candidates that went through the traditional or through the AI interview versus the traditional service did much better in the following interview. And they were talking about something like 28% didn't go through that and showed very different performance levels versus what they saw from those candidates that went through that process. So it's definitely out there, and hopefully we can get a little bit of light shed on it when we bring in our guests. But I also wanted to say that in a couple of weeks we have another show. We're going to, we have a practitioner this time, and then the next show we're going to actually step behind the scenes and look at some of the systems as we kind of try to understand how the employee experience is being shaped by this.
Well, the other thing that so when I was doing the background reading on this, I'm like, this is just like a sales funnel, the higher quality candidates that we can focus on earlier are going to do better through the funnel, and which corresponds with that article. So I see a lot of parallels. And then the other aspect of it is, just in time. I mean, like, when I graduated from college, we'd get a job and we'd stay there for 20 years, and now people stay there for 18 months. and it's 9 to 12 months or longer to ramp. So I'm not even effective in my first year, and then I leave 9 months later or something like that, and it's not your father's business model. Like, how do you make that business model work if those?
And I mean, it's tough from the sales perspective, right? Because that's probably the highest turnover part of the business these days, because it is difficult, right? I mean, you're talking about a huge investment up front to find the sales folks, huge effort to get them up to speed, and then, trying to get them productive to the point that you get your money back before they leave. That's a challenge. So I'm excited today because we have the guest today. Actually, I worked together with him when I was at G2, and he was different parts of employee success across that organization, but has landed lately after leading that group for a while. He's now the senior director of people analytics, systems, and talent acquisition, which he calls pasta. I kind of love that one. So Dave Faulk, he's been known for his passion for building and developing high performing teams in fast growing environments. Brings a global perspective to talent leadership. Dave's approach focuses on real human connections, continuous learning, driving organizational success through innovative people strategies. And he's an advocate for mental and physical well-being, and is dedicated to helping others reach their fullest potential, both professionally and personally. So, Dave, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
Boy, AI does a good job with introductions too.
I know, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, that's impressive. Come on. Now, David, it's good to see you, and I'm glad you could join us today. I think this will be a fun conversation, and you and I kind of started this last week as we were talking about some of the topics. So I don't know, why don't we just jump right in and talk about some of the things that you guys have been up to, and
Sounds great.
Sort of see what the landscape looks like from your perspective, right? Well, I was going to start just kind of a little bit of background, right? So I'm just curious, what are you seeing right now, in terms of this gap that we were talking about between, especially Gen Z, but graduates in general, and what candidates actually bring to the table? And then you work with a lot of hiring managers internally. What do they want when they talk about AI skills? I mean, what's that gap look like, and what does that really mean from a hiring perspective?
Yeah, so I guess I think about things in a couple different ways, right? With AI skills, it can mean a couple different things, right? Of course, we have like the, I guess, hard AI skills of like machine learning, natural language processing. And then I think what we're seeing a lot more common from hiring managers right now is just like in every role across the board, we want AI skills, which, that could mean like, oh yeah, you're good at building workflows or tying things together or figuring things out and making, essentially making agents and having them do magic. Right. So I think that's like the big thing that hiring managers are wanting. And the tough thing is though, that, universities don't, we don't necessarily have a credentialing system for that. Right. It's like, you can put on your LinkedIn skills list, like, I don't know what, like AI, but like, what does that mean? So yeah, that's the big.
Well, I have my AI put that on my skills list. That sounds good. Yeah. Right? It's interesting because I think as I've talked to different people, and one of the people involved in the show is a professor in a university in Florida, and we did a show, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I think, about AI in higher ed, and it was a real contentious point as we talked about this, because there's like two big camps, right? We want to embrace this and integrate it into everything, and then we don't want that anywhere near our universities. What do you think about that? I mean, is that something you hear, and then has that been a challenge?
I don't think it's, I guess the first part, like, I don't think it's been too much of a challenge, just because, like I have heard anecdotally, of course, like, there are those groups that, on various campuses that don't like AI, and it does take out some kind of human element. It's not great for the environment, etc. Whatever those arguments are, it's kind of like saying, like, I feel like right now in the workforce, being anti-AI, if you could be, or trying to resist it, is like resisting a computer. It's just like, computers first come out, it's like, oh, I'm not going to bother with this. But like, yeah, that's ridiculous. It's like, it's going to happen. It's going to be part of our lives. Who knows, like where you are in the hype cycle of believing it'll like, bring everyone to like, nirvana or, despair. Regardless, it's happening. So yeah, as job seekers, you really have to be on it. As universities, I think the ones who are successful are the ones who are saying like, hey, to the professors and adjuncts and all sorts of staff, like, hey, like make this a part of our workflow. It's not going away. Find out how to work with it, then be against it. Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Is part of the skill understanding what it's good at and what it's not, or like how do you think about when you think of I'm going to define what skill is aside from sort of the agentic thing that you mentioned? What are there other facets or dimensions to it?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, if someone's good at AI, I mean, yeah, you actually introduced it really well, because it's like that could mean anything, right? And so one thing that we're having is like it's not so much a like I don't think there is a credential that I've seen that I would trust necessarily, right? Because just in fact, if it came from like a university, I'd be suspicious, because you're like, oh, things are changing so fast, and just in general, and just like the way people are using workflows and the way people are using all these things, it's not an obvious thing. So I really think the only way you can suss it out is to really dig deep of like, hey, what are you using AI for? Because then, if it's just like, do you use AI? Be like, oh, sure. I went on vacation last month and I had it, put together a 2-day itinerary and it was great. It's like, that's cool. But also it's not necessarily going to move the needle in your business. So really just digging down of like, why, and like, yeah, what people are using it for, what they've built, different use cases. But like you said, Pete, it's like how, like knowing even what AI can do is, I think, half the battle. And I think that's what, to me, that's where a huge opportunity lies in universities or companies who are training up their employees. It's just like people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And do you see a difference between like how you would answer that question or any of these questions, really, if you're focused on like a Fortune 500 company versus a 20 or 30 person company? Are they concerned about different things?
I think they might be. I mean, I think in general, it's like, the skills are going to get you far. If you are kind of an entrepreneurial thinker and can problem solve and learn fast, I think those will be, those skill sets will be coveted, throughout. I do think, at the bigger companies, it's going to be harder to maybe like tap into your company's data lake and start doing interesting things with it, right? It's like security is going to be more of a hurdle to get over, but for the most part though, it's like those entrepreneurial skill sets of being curious and constantly learning, I think, are going to be valuable across the board.
I mean, it must be complicated from a recruiter and a hiring manager perspective when you think about the fact that this is moving so quickly, and there really aren't a lot of certifications that you could look at, or certificates, or whatever credentials that could give you credibility. So I was just curious about the hiring manager themselves when they think about entry-level candidates. I mean, how are they asking you to evaluate that from that skills and experience perspective, and what are they looking for?
Yeah, great question. I think there are a few different things, right? Because it's like I think the hardest thing is taking this kind of old-fashioned relic of the past, which is the resume or the CV, and that's a huge gap right now, because it doesn't really have like a component of like how you're doing the work. You can have your outcomes or what you've done, but it doesn't say like how you got there, or like what kind of have you used AI. So one thing we have had success with is like including kind of an extra application question of like, how are you using AI to solve problems? Like, tell us about how you're plugging AI into your coding workflow or something like this. So it can, it's a lot more manual work, and you still have the comb through of the, our ITS, Michael, as you mentioned before, we do use a like AI screening as part of that to kind of identify buckets of like, hey, start here because you have 1,000 applicants. So, start with these 100, right? And so we're still going off that. But then kind of the secondary thing is like, all right, let's really dig in just because it is so hard to really suss out who actually has some of these skills. So yeah, it's tough because some, I would say too, like some hiring managers have a clear idea. Like if they're like, hey, we need someone who can really tie our systems together and create dashboards and kind of consolidate things. And like, they might have a clear vision of what they need. But a lot of hiring managers too are like, oh, well, I'm kind of hiring for the potential that you will maybe see something and can do some magic.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the technology piece is a little bit more concrete, but the kind of lifetime learning skills that go across all these other positions is more difficult, because what does that really mean for a BDR or for a sales rep or for, and a developer? It's kind of, I get it. I mean, there's some obvious technology piece there that makes sense, but so how does that, I mean, does the ATS help you when you're screening? Does it help you? And how does it do that? Like, is it mostly keyword based, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of peeling back the opening the curtain a little bit on the process. Of course, in most of the ATSs and like other like resume screening, application screening AIs that I've seen, it's basically like an LLM. Like if you just imagine like you're typing something into ChatGPT, right? So you can upload the resume, or sorry, the job spec, of course, like your job posting. You can give the keyword of like the skills that you want and everything. So that's kind of the basic one. And so, if you go to ChatGPT and just kind of give it a general query of like, oh, write me a story. I think, Michael, I used that example before when we were talking is, ChatGPT can crank out something and it'll give you an okay response, right? But if you're, if you really outline like, hey, here's what I'm looking for, if you say like, hey, I want people from a fast growth company, but then tell the LLM, like, or tell the ATS, like, this is what a fast growth company means. Right. Or like, hey, here are some other profiles of people who have been successful in the role. Some will do that as well for matching. And so really there's like a few things. So it is like keyword, but then there's that extra level of context that can really find the good matches then. So it's still not, I don't think anything will ever be like, well, maybe not ever, but with the current thing of like resume / application, it's still going off of what you put on there, what the AI told you to put on there, and there are gaps there. So it is tough, and we can talk about strategies a little bit from the candidate's point of view, but
yeah.
So it sounds like the initial application is like you're using it like the great filter, like let's just do a better job of filtering than we were manually or through some previous type of technology, right? And then is there anything going on to compare sort of the maybe the ways that candidates that turn out to be successful interact with these systems versus the ones who aren't as successful? Or is it too early in the life cycle of this technology to start to learn from? Is there a connection between the people who do a good job on the interview phase and then what they turn out to be?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I don't.
You say that Michael's questions are all really good, and I get nothing. I'm just trying to up my game here a little bit. And I still didn't get the nod. So
I'll say it's a great, great questions. No, it's like, I mean, that is one thing that I maybe that. Because like everything is like trying to find a really good match of the candidate. And I haven't necessarily, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist or that you couldn't do it, but like looking across at, maybe if you're hiring like, 20 BDRs, for example, in like one go or something like that, you can or just across time over time, you can start learning like which ones are good, and that feedback loop back into the system. I know that there are some that have some of that. But yeah, I would say like from a candidate point of view too, it's like I think the worst thing that happened to the like application industry was just like reducing friction so much. Everything is like so easy to apply. You just hit like apply now, apply now, apply now. And if everyone is just clicking apply now, that it's incredibly hard to stand out. It's incredibly hard to find signal amongst the noise. And so I think anything, the things that I've seen be successful with candidates is like at any step, if you can really like somehow as a candidate add some kind of friction point of like, oh, hey, I did something extra, or like I reached out and wrote a thoughtful thing that wasn't AI generated, or, if there's any way you can like add a little friction to the process, either as an employer or as an applicant, I think those are where you're going to actually find goodness at this point.
I mean, how are you mentioned AI interview before, and I know we were talking about that a little bit last week too. And I'm really trying to picture what this is like from a candidate perspective, right? So I send in my resume. I made it through the 8,000 filter colander that lets me through. And now I'm going into, I'm going to go online and have some sort of a conversation with an agent. I mean, it's a bot, I assume. And how does that work? I mean, what is that like from a candidate perspective?
Yeah, I've seen let's call it like a spectrum of the kinds of like, I guess, like the flavors of the interview process with that AI agent who's interviewing you, right? So there are, and it's really interesting because just more and more companies are adding that to their offerings is the AI screening, which it does take a lot of time, and if you can reduce that as recruiters, that's great. But there are kind of two things I've seen. Well, there are a few different things, but one that's pretty popular amongst services that do this is like, one says, hey, we're going to screen. They go kind of the volume approach, and it's really good for candidate experience. They say like, hey, we're going to give the opportunity for every applicant to interview. And so then,
wow,
you hit apply now. And then the idea is that you instantly get a, notification or pull up a new page that says like, hey, are you available now? Let's chat. And if you're not available right now, let's, schedule a time.
Pick a time.
And so then you're doing that. And like the AI, the best ones I found, of course, are like more conversational. They're like actually listening and saying, oh, hey, tell me more about, multi-threading. Tell me more about how you've done this, versus just like question, listen, question, so yeah, that's kind of one thing where everyone gets to apply. And then, you have some qualifying questions, of course, to weed people out. And the other one would be kind of what you mentioned, Michael, is you give the kind of like, you do the filter number one through the ATS and the applications, and then give the people give the kind of next round of people the phone screen. And then also there's, kind of like variations of that, of course, is like, video interviewing has been around for a while, where it's more just like, hey, there's like 3 prompts on the screen and you just read your answers. That's kind of like maybe like the most basic, but then like AI is scoring those answers. So I'd include that on the other end of the spectrum though too.
How does that change your job then? How do you evaluate? Is it based on the score, or how do you know that candidate was good and got through that first screen?
Yeah, I think for everything it's a little, you can, some of these are pretty sophisticated in like what kind of algorithm, what kind of like features, I guess you could say, that you want to make sure that are answered and as part of a rubric essentially. And so, we're basically looking for anyone, if normally a recruiter just sees a resume and is making a decision on whether or not to talk to someone, let's say we make 10, recruiter phone calls to those people to actually learn a little bit more. And, let's say only 3 out of the 10 get to pass on to the hiring manager. So, you're still having to make 7 calls that were kind of a waste of time. So anytime we can just learn a little bit more of like, oh, hey, like these are the things we really cared about, and these are the things that the interview
Nice to have
screen AI, just
Yeah.
and then you get some kind of ranking, and those are the ones. And so if it still, you still need to talk to a human, is what I believe. It's not going to be perfect. You don't want to just pass people along blindly, but if you can cut down 10 calls down to 5 calls, and then you're passing 3 along, that's a lot better.
Well, the thing that just struck me was you're enabling yourself to scale something you couldn't do in the past.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we could talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Using technology, whereas using human beings, we can't. And that adds, and the second thing you said that ties directly into that is anytime we could learn like a little bit more, it gives us an advantage, which is the same thing in sales. I talked earlier about there's so many parallels. You're flying blind to a lesser degree. You always don't know everything you want to know, but to the extent that you can start to chip away at that, the cloudiness around the decision you're trying to make, then you're going to make a better decision. So again, you're removing the scale problem from learning too. I mean, it's part and parcel. So I see that as a real game changer. Like, and you really can't, as you said a minute ago, you in a different way, you really can't argue about making a process more intelligent. Like, what's the counter argument to that?
Yeah.
Like that's a tough sell. But so it doesn't have to do everything. People just have this silver bullet mentality where, AI should just fix everything. No. So that's which goes back to the earlier point we made of, they don't even know what they don't know. How do you, what does AI really do, and what type of AI does one thing well versus another thing? And so there's just so much education to be done, and everybody's got a job that they're already doing. So to then take on while you're doing that, rethink how you could do every aspect of your job, and even though you don't know what AI is good at or not yet, where would AI fit into this puzzle? Which is why you need people like Michael out there. Like, I'll figure that stuff out for you, and here's where you start, and here's the second thing you do, and here's the third thing you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you work with your hiring managers? Not in dev, obviously, because like I said, that one seems really obvious. There's there's recognition of the tools and how you use them and what you're going to do and what your role will be and all that. But what about a person in a different organization, marketing or sales or research? I mean, what are you telling the managers to look for there? And what do you expect those candidates, particularly recent college grads, what do you expect them to know?
Yeah, I think the couple things there are around, I guess, because the environment's changing so fast, what do you expect them to know? It's like, maybe that part is like less important, right? And like, it's more around how they're thinking. So that's a key, and that's kind of getting back to like the, what is a liberal arts education, and the whole thing of like, we teach, theoretically you go to university to teach people how to think versus only getting the credential, right? And like maybe going back to its roots would be a good thing. But so that's part of one. And then anything that they can show, really the skill set that we want to see is the like entrepreneurial thing. And so maybe that's more of a company like G2, but that's what we're looking for a lot is like, hey, where did you see a problem, and then how did you solve it? It doesn't even have to be like with AI, but it can be like, oh, well, not everything is an AI solving problem, right? It could be just like, oh, I used AI to write me some code that I stuck into a script on Excel, and now I built out this thing, so I guess you still used AI, but like, it's not necessarily using AI to, it's not an AI fix, but so I'd say just those entrepreneurship and really just how people are thinking about things are really important, as well as what they've done. And so a lot of times, especially I think the college grads, maybe we'll talk about this a little later, but like through our internship program, for example, the interns that we've had at G2 have just like really blown us away with like what they can come to the table with, and just they have like a fresh mind or have learned tools from, I don't know if it's from like the formal education or if it's just through just their own learnings and their own tinkerings, but coming and then teaching our teams how to use different workflows or to incorporate new things. We had so much of that, and so it's definitely definitely there. And I would say a lot of it is going to be self-taught, right? And things that you do through tinkering time. And that just shows how good of an entrepreneurial thinker they are, maybe.
Yeah.
And so would that be weighted higher? Would you prefer that as opposed to somebody who got certified, at Microsoft for XYZ?
Great question, Pete. Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
No, I would say it depends, right? Because if you need someone with like something very specific to like building out HubSpot,
so it depends on the job
campaigns. Yeah. It's like cool. Some HubSpot certification would be is a must have. If it is more, or that's like the table stakes going into it, right? And then like that next level, like, hey, what's going to make a candidate really successful in this role? Because everyone has the baseline certificate theoretically, and then what is going to make it to the next level is going to be maybe more of that, like, hey, look what I can do. And I guess that's where the personal preference comes along. Because I mean, definitely have had hiring managers that are like, oh, cool, like this person took some certificate course, so that's like some proof of work, maybe. That that at least would make someone interested in talking to them. But I'm more of a believer personally of having people learn on the fly and showing me what you learned and showing me how you've done something in an interesting new way.
Are you doing things with the new hires, particularly to give them the opportunity to learn those skills? Like when you bring them in, obviously we know the baseline's kind of all over the place these days, right? So is there a structured onboarding training kind of program that you guys are doing now that helps those people get up to some knowledge level?
I would say definitely yes, in terms of just here's what you need to do your job. I would say less so with the specific like AI skills, just because they are a little bit more amorphous. That is one thing that I think is I've talked to many peers and other folks and part of a couple of groups of just like, how are you rolling out AI to the organizations? Because often that falls on like IT and the people team and like, I think there's kind of the argument of like, whatever, central planning versus distributed kind of thing. And I think there's a personal preference that like, the organization can centrally say, hey, here's our like overall philosophy. And here's, like making tools available to everyone. But then the specific use cases are going to be built distributed like amongst the teams. And there's some things that can say like, hey, if we buy this tool centrally, like that kind of creates agents, or if, hey, we say, Claude Code is a great thing that we want anyone to have, that might be a central decision. But so I think the training is a little tricky. I think that will be one really interesting thing that we could start doing, or that all companies will try to figure out and experiment with as they go along, for sure.
So are you using agents to do that? Sorry, Peter, didn't mean to cut you off. Agents to do that though? I was just curious.
Agents to teach,
to train, to onboard, to teach. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there are some really cool, just very basic like bots around, like just like, hey, tap into our knowledge base and then into our internal wiki, and then go to town, right? And so, new hires can ask whatever and get caught up to speed that way. Having the AI teach about AI or something like this, or how to use AI, that'd be an interesting use case. But yeah, I haven't tried that yet.
What I was going to ask was, it seems like the approach you're taking is sort of a very localized approach, like highly contextualized. What does this group need for AI to do? Which of course is where AI tends to be more successful anyway. The more contextualization of the data that it has, the better output you're going to get. And frankly, trying to do the opposite again would be very difficult. Like, how do we have a general purpose training regimen to get us all up to the same level on AI, whatever that means. So that would be a 6-month project, 6 months in class. Trying to do that. So I could just kind of more of an on the job training kind of a approach makes more sense practically.
Absolutely. And I've seen different companies trying different things, whether it's like, introducing a little more like tinker time, if you will. And, kind of like Google's famous, like, all right, 25% of the time work on your own things, or,
and the other 80 hours a week do what we hired you to do. Yeah.
I mean, it is a startup, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, that's almost like where the trade-off is, right? It's like you're wanting change, but to even use the tools that come out of the box, like it does take some learning of like how to actually use it right, and to experiment with it, and to do this, you need some reps in there. And so anytime those can be used, or any time that can be given to the people to do that. But I do kind of think that, like, a lot of folks will just kind of, they're too busy to learn AI, or like too busy to learn new things, or too busy to learn how to use this more effectively. So I think that's a big part of the challenge, is really.
I couldn't agree more. To me, like the focus of the application development we're doing now is all about the word time. Mm-hmm. And basically time and effort. Like how quickly can I sort of grok what this thing can do for me, and how easy can I make it for you to get the results? That feedback loop is in seconds, and that's it. That's the level of involvement or engagement or investment that you should expect for lots and lots of people to get. And it's different. Like us older guys have this Dunning-Kruger thing going on where we think we know everything, and we don't. And then
you mean we don't?
The younger, and then the younger folks, I think, really appreciate the fact that they don't know what they don't know, and are looking for help, and are expecting technology to figure it out for them. Whereas the other generations don't have that expectation that the technology should be good enough. Like I go back to my youngest son. Years ago, I can't forget what age he was, but he was old enough to use a computer, and he used Google, and he got like 1 billion results back for whatever he asked for it.
Yeah.
And he goes, "What value is this at all?" And I was like, "It's Google. I mean, it just gave you 1 million results."
Yeah,
he's like, "I can't use 1 million results." So he was like so much more, insightful about, how technology should deliver value to you than I was.
When you're looking at this, Dave, so are there specific programs or schools or things you guys are targeting? I mean, I keep kind of trying to watch the higher ed, especially evolve, and it seems like it's very difficult to see what programs are being more successful than others. So I'm just curious how you kind of think about targeting.
Yeah, that's one thing we have not really done, is like target specific schools for like, hey, we think they're doing a great job with building skill X or AI skills in general. But one thing, I do think, like, through our internship program, we have been, that's probably our most direct tie into like early career hiring is through that program, which we've ended up making a lot of full-time offers and had people stick around for a while at G2. So I think it's been a really successful program. And for those, we're headquartered in Chicago. That's kind of like where our internship is for the summer. So we do ask folks to kind of converge on Chicago for the summer, which is fun. And we do have one that goes as well in India and Bangalore. And we do have kind of a mix of kind of those like local schools, like trying to build relationships locally, where we do know that we are getting like really good people with really good skills in the door. And but then, not only limiting ourselves to those, but also kind of looking externally. But I think it's more around just fishing in the ponds that you've had success at before, and then until you don't have the success anymore there, and then you can look elsewhere.
I mean, it sounds like you're using and I guess we did this when I was there too. The internship program is a good on-ramp for those entry-level employees anyway, because you get a little bit of try before you buy for both, right? I mean, for the applicants too, for the interns too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And we found like, in general, and it's like, not like we hire hundreds of interns or anything, we're a bit smaller scale there, but in general, we do have, more tenure for sure. With our, our interns tend to stick around longer. They, like you said, try before you buy. Like they kind of know what they're getting. We know what we're getting. So everyone feels good in general, I think.
So once these new hires are on board and you discover that there is a skill gap, so they got through the great filter and there still is a problem, how does that affect retention and engagement? And like, are you putting these people through additional training, or like, how do you respond to, oh shucks, we've made maybe a potential mistake here?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak to what we've been doing at G2, and it's basically, I think, in general, we're like treating everyone, whether right out of school or, otherwise at the company, we have a career level framework. And of course, if you're like a, P1 entry level, there's kind of like a different, you're not going to expect them to be able to have wonderful stakeholder management and know exactly who to loop in, stuff like that. But we do have, kind of skills of like a certain level that we feel people should be living up to. And we are actually integrating AI skills into that. We've seen a couple companies that have done that really well and have published about it. Like I know Zapier, like shares their framework and stuff. And so trying to take that and basically bake that in for our like next fiscal year kind of expectations of like, hey, these are the types of AI skills that we feel one should have at this level. And that's going to be different team by team as well. But once those are set, it's kind of a, case by case basis of, we haven't really done like a wide ranging like training program. Like, oh, you have to go to like boot camp to be a better person. Maybe for new managers, we'll have something like that, but not necessarily the entry level skills. It's typically kind of case by case of where the employee is. We feel they could amp it up a little bit.
So more of a distributed approach. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of, I mean, if I'm an applicant and I want to think about how I should approach G2 or any new job, I mean, what advice do you have for especially for new college grads, but for any applicant that wants to get in?
Great question, Michael.
Great question.
Thank you, Pete.
Because it is tough out there.
It is tough out there.
Sure. I mean, this is a tough time for, applicants all across the board. Right. And so I would definitely say, a lot of people might, I would say cast a wide net and try to, like I mentioned, like be like add friction. So I guess like the first thing is like of cast a wide net. I mean, do the thing where you look on LinkedIn, try to figure out who is actually hiring for the role. Don't reach out to me and say like, oh, hey, I really love your sales experience. I'm like, oh, I don't have any sales experience, but like, be thoughtful about things beyond just like the, oh, as your insert title here, I'm sure you care about this. Please give my application a consideration, so be thoughtful. Just try that. You'll get a lot of people ignoring you. A lot of people writing back and saying like, just apply online, which you should do anyway. But anything you can do more like show, don't tell. Also, anything you can do online to kind of show a body of work. I would definitely publish a blog post where you put your thoughts, put stuff on LinkedIn of just like things that you are trying to do, just so you have some kind of thing to point back to. And then that'll be like a really interesting point that, I can look at and say, oh, this is interesting, to help you stand out, anything to help you stand out.
Makes sense.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. That is all the time we have today. Dave, you survived the hot seat. Congratulations. You've impressed us all. You're the first one to make it all the way through. If you audience members, if you think you have what it takes to be in the hot seat, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. That is your In the Hot Seat episode for today. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Pete Smith.
And I'm Michael Fauscette. Tune in next time for different faces, different topics, and different perspectives as we put somebody different in the hot seat.